Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I rise in support of my amendment, which cuts funding for the Bureau of Land Management by 50%. The mission of the BLM is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generations. Unfortunately, the BLM isn't living up to its stated purpose, and it's lost its way. It's becoming harder and harder for each new generation to use and enjoy our public lands because the BLM is locked in on its goal to lock out land users, including recreationists, livestock raisers, and energy producers. Earlier this year, the BLM proposed the so-called Landscape Health Rule, which seeks to replace productive activities under the BLM's multiple use framework by creating an additional use, so-called conservation leases, a designation never approved by Congress. The current framework already balances conservation with other uses. Creating an entirely new use under the umbrella of conservation is simply a means to eliminate other uses and bar anyone from even setting foot on these lands. Now, I'm grateful that this act also includes a section that prevents funding from going towards the implementation of this proposed rule, but that is not enough. We must also address the BLM's overall agenda to lock us out of our federal lands. My amendment does just that, and I request my colleagues to support it. With that, I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. For what purposes the gentleman from Idaho rise?
Mr. Speaker, I claim time in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman from Idaho is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the frustration that the gentlelady expresses in her statement, but I must rise in opposition to this amendment. The Bureau of Land Management's funding level is already $255.4 million, or 18% below the FY23 enacted level. A drastic 50% cut to already decreased levels leaves me concerned that this would put the agency in a position where they cannot carry out critical activities to address their most pressing issues in western states, particularly in Wyoming, Idaho, other states. The growing backlog for grazing and energy mineral activity permits, population problems with wild horses and burros that were just debated on the last amendment, and the increasing demand for increased recreational access to our public lands causes me deep concern when you want to cut the BLM by an additional 50%. So I must oppose this amendment, and I would yield to the gentlelady from Maine.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And
the gentlelady from Maine is recognized.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the chair of this committee for opposing the amendment. As far as I'm concerned, this amendment is extreme. It will not gain bipartisan support and become law. The draconian cuts proposed in this bill violate the agreement reached by former Speaker McCarthy and President Biden that were memorialized in statute in Public Law 118-5, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, and we would not be teetering on the brink of government shutdown if my Republican colleagues would hold up their end of the bargain. But as to this amendment, with the West reeling from the historic megadrought, the worst in 1,200 years, why would any of my colleagues want to hamstring the Bureau of Land Management from protecting our public lands for the American public and future generations?
Greetings, friends. So they need to take action soon. Lawmakers in Congress have just passed 3 funding bills, and legislation must be passed in order to prevent a government shutdown in 2 weeks. But Democrats are insisting that the bills that are passed so far would lead to automatic spending cuts for several major programs. My friends, please make sure that you watch until the end of this video. Also, tomorrow, I will be announcing several winners for the Walmart gift card giveaway. To enter the giveaway, friends, all you have to do is click and like several of my videos, and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, friends, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways. The Federal Reserve is currently dealing with inflationary pressures and is considering strategies to navigate through the economic recovery. It seems the Fed's recent stance reflects a temporary pause in interest rate hikes, with potential discussions about rate cuts in the future. The economic indicators, such as job growth and the Consumer Price Index, have shown positive trends, influencing the Fed's decisions. The labor market strength and moderate wage growth might be contributing to the Fed's evolving perspective on the relationship between labor market conditions and inflation control. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell highlighted the need to reach a 2% inflation target and expressed cautious optimism about the progress made towards this goal. So while the economy is showing signs of recovery from the crisis, concerns about household debt, especially with the resumption of student loan payments and record-high credit card debt, persist. But today, the Democratic-led Senate passed a trio of government funding bills with broad bipartisan support. This is a move that some senators hope will pressure the Republican-controlled House to change course from its partisan approach. The Senate voted 82-15 to approve funding bills covering military construction, veterans affairs, agriculture, transportation, and housing. The vote breaks a lengthy logjam on government funding ahead of a November 17th deadline to avert a shutdown. Senate Democrat Tammy Baldwin, a member of the Appropriations Committee, said, "There is definitely an uncertainty with regard to how the House will respond to our strong bipartisan votes on appropriation bills, but we hope they will conclude, especially seeing the strong bipartisan votes, that the only way forward is through bipartisanship." Meanwhile, the House passed its fifth appropriations bill last week under Speaker Mike Johnson. Republicans are taking a party-line approach that would cut spending and advance policy measures that are opposed by Democrats in charge of the Senate and the White House. Congress needs to pass 12 appropriation bills individually, together or on a short-term basis, to fully fund the government. The November 17th is a deadline to avoid a shutdown. Senator Johnson told senators he's eyeing a short-term bill to keep the government open through January 15th and force 1% discretionary spending cuts across the board. That automatic cut, which is set to take effect in April, is opposed by President Biden and Democrats, who note that it would hit the Defense Department harder than non-defense spending. But other conservatives, like Representative Thomas Macy and Senator Rand Paul, say the 1% cut is fine and that, if anything, Congress should cut deeper into the federal budget. The future of all the funding items is uncertain. Some on Capitol Hill have wondered whether they will lead to a single short-term bill that attaches some of the supplemental funding request. According to a new survey, an overwhelming majority of voters think that changes need to be enacted as quickly as possible to maintain the viability of Social Security and Medicare. A new poll just released shows that 87% of likely voters believe that lawmakers should start working immediately on changes to extend the life of Social Security and avoid cuts to benefits. Meanwhile, 89% said changes should be made as soon as possible to ensure the solvency of Medicare. Prior to the responses, those surveyed were informed of the estimated timelines for when each entitlement program would face automatic spending cuts without changes in Social Security's case. That cut is estimated to come in 2035, and the Medicare Hospital Trust Fund is expected to be exhausted between 2028 and 2031. So while all ages want to see the candidates address the issue, the relative urgency to safeguard Medicare and Social Security is clearly stratified by generation. Well, my magnificent and most marvelous friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for today. Dear friends, thank you very much for being part of this community. To say thank you and to show my appreciation, every Friday I will be announcing several winners for the Walmart gift card giveaway. If you would like to enter tomorrow's giveaway, friends, all you have to do is click and like several of my videos, and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, friends, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways. Thank you, and have a wonderful and very blessed week.